So we got a little bit of footage today from 11 Alive. And whenever you guys see these fishes swimming, it means that the person could not show their face. And so I have to substitute something. Now, the voice kind of sounded like True's wife, aka what name did he go by? Ace, True, Just, real name, Aaron. Sounds like his wife. Now the testimony is getting kind of interesting and a little more detailed as to what went on. Because as you guys know, a woman's point of view and perspective is going to be different from the man. Because what Nature Boy did with the women, he didn't quite do with the men. And so the perspective is different and it becomes a little more disturbing. So let's get started. So it starts out with the state asking her questions, the attorney for the state asking her questions. The prosecuting attorney, if you will.
All right, anything else for witness? Not from the state. All right, thank you so much. May he be excused? Yes, you're free to go. Thank you. All right, call your next witness.
And are you familiar with Eligio Bishop?
Yes.
When did you first learn of Mr. Bishop?
I first learned of Mr. Bishop in around Thanksgiving of 2017.
How old would you have been at that point in your life?
23 years old.
And what was going on in your life at that point?
I was working and in school and going through just issues in relationships and where I wanted to be and go in my life, like who I wanted to become and what I wanted to do with my life.
And how did you find Mr. Bishop and his group?
I found him on Facebook.
Okay. And I guess how did you first begin to engage with that?
So I first saw a video of the group in May 2017, and then later on that year, around Thanksgiving in 2017, I saw a video of Mr. Bishop teaching, and then that's when I went on his timeline, saw that those people were actually living with him, and they were all part of the same group.
And what did you think of that?
I thought it was beautiful that they were living in the tropics and living off the land, like eating fruit off the trees in Costa Rica and being able to live freely and have this knowledge of themselves and of what life and reality is and have this community lifestyle.
Is that what was appealing about the life that he offered?
Yes, definitely. That's what was most appealing.
When did you leave home to go stay with the group?
I left on December 10th, 2017.
And where was the group located at that point?
They were located in Texas.
And how was it arranged for you? I guess, where were you geographically before you left to go to Texas?
I was living in Seattle, Washington.
So how was it arranged for you to get from Seattle to Texas?
So I spoke with one of the members there. He reached out to me on Facebook, and we started chatting back and forth. And then he FaceTimed me, and Eligio got into the frame, and he was like, "If you're coming, you better come now. We're about to leave. We're about to go to Belize." And so I bought my plane ticket.
And that conversation with Mr. Bishop on the FaceTime, was that the first time that you had directly communicated with him, or had y'all talked before that?
That was the first time.
When you arrived in, was it Houston, or what part of Texas?
I'm not sure what part of Texas it was.
When you arrived in Texas, how did you get from the airport to the group?
The entire group came to meet me at the airport.
And what was that like?
It was like a lot of love. Like they showed up, they all got out of the cars that they were in. They all gave me hugs. They were smiling. They were saying, "Welcome home." Yeah, it was like very warm, like a warm welcome.
And how long did you all stay in Texas before you went to Belize?
It was about 2 or 3 weeks we stayed there.
Did you bring personal belongings with you?
Yes, I brought just like clothes, all the cards, like debit cards and credit cards I had, my ID. I didn't have a passport, but like my birth certificate, all that stuff, like I brought with me.
And what happened were you able to keep your belongings when you joined the group?
So they checked my bags and they what I couldn't have there and what I could. So like they threw away stuff that was like my sketchbooks and things that said we didn't believe in, and then they wanted me to hand over my credit cards, my debit card, stuff like any money, cash I had.
How much cash or money did you bring with you?
I think it was about $700 total.
And within the group, did you go by your legal name?
So that the first night, Eligio he looked at me and he was like, I want to figure out what to name you. And I can't remember if it was that night or not, but he ended up giving me the name.
And how was your relationship with Eligio when you first got there?
There wasn't really a relationship. He kind of communicated to other people that he would want to communicate to me. I remember posting on my Instagram things like memes or quotes and stuff like that. And he told one of the guys to call me into his space, where he was. And he told me where did you find these quotes from that you're posting? And this is my teachings. Why didn't you acknowledge me when you posted that? So there was kind of the first interactions with him was just him establishing himself. I think to me that's he's the leader.
Were there rules within the group?
Yes, yeah, there were a lot of rules.
How did you come to learn about those rules?
The first night I was given a tour of this is how we do things. They were telling me when we go to the bathroom, we go outside, number 1 and 2. If you toilet paper, you could use 2 squares of toilet paper to go number 1 and 6 squares of toilet paper to go number 2. And if you wanted to use the bathroom inside the house, you couldn't use the toilet or the shower, just the sink. And you had to keep the door either propped open or unlocked. Because there was a no lock door policy. If you wanted to go into the kitchen, you had to be permitted to go into the kitchen. You weren't allowed to cook, unless you were given permission.
When you say given permission, where would this permission come from?
It would come from Mr. Bishop.
And did those rules remain consistent throughout the entire time you were in the group?
Yes, and more rules were added on as time went by.
What about rules with who you could be in a relationship with or date? Were there rules related to those topics?
Yes, if when I originally came there, I was with someone in a relationship that was there. That's the guy I was talking to on Facebook. And I had to...
Just so we're clear, what was that guy's name?
Oh, his name, his code name, the name he was called in the group.
Sure.
It was Om at the time, and it changed to Tron.
Okay. So you had a relationship going with him when you joined the group?
Yes.
Okay. And, all right, so then you were explaining the rules, and I interrupted. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Also, in order to not be in a relationship with him anymore, I had to bring it to Eligio and tell him I don't want to be in a relationship with him anymore. And then, Eligio would say, okay, what he did say was, okay, well, I know someone else that you can be with. And then he basically set me and this other person up together, and then we had this little ceremony where it was a wedding, because there was no boyfriend and girlfriend. You were either wife and husband or you're not together, and you had to be with someone. You by yourself. So it was always like you had to ask permission to not be with someone or to be with someone. And if he wanted you to not be with that person and break up, that's what had to happen.
And were there times that there would just be no relationships?
There was times when he would say, like, I want all of the women to be separate from the men. And then he would just be with the women, and the men would be separate.
Were folks within the group able to say no to Mr. Bishop?
No, I don't think so.
And what would happen if somebody did?
It would be a major issue to disagree with him. It would be like hours of meetings. Like if you would disagree with him, he would bring it to a meeting. He would always say like, okay, well, prove to me how you're right and I'm wrong. And so you would think that you're getting to this meeting and you have facts to like bring up why what you're saying is, a valid argument, but he would always dominate the conversation. And then you would end up basically just giving in like, fine, you're right. Or everyone else being like, yeah, we agree with him, you're wrong. And then towards my last years being there, like the last kind of months being there actually, it was just like, anything you did to disagree with him, you would just get slapped, you would just be physically harmed, you sometimes jump, it just, yeah.
And just so we can set up the timeline, when did you ultimately cut ties with the group?
In April of 2022, after Mr. Bishop's arrest.
So the time period where you're saying the last few months before you left, would that have been early 2022?
Yes.
What did members of the group call Mr. Bishop?
In the beginning, when I first got there, we called him Master Teacher. Then he wanted to be called Father to Hootie. Then he wanted to be called Chief. Then he wanted us to call him our Lord and Savior. And then Babaji. And then eventually he wanted us to call him, the women, he wanted us to call him Papi. Or God. Everyone had to either call him God or Three God by the end.
And it's safe to say that his title sort of evolved over time?
Yes.
How did the defendant refer to the rest of the outside world?
The outside world was hell. It was Babylon. It was everyone outside of the cult was in their lower self. So they were like an unevolved, person, somebody that didn't have knowledge of self.
And how did Mr. Bishop look at folks communicating with their family or friends that were outside of the group?
Originally, like for me personally, he told me not to tell my family I was leaving home because he said they wouldn't understand. Don't tell your right hand what your left hand is about to do. They're going to try to talk you out of it. So when I got there, before I left, I ended up blocking all of my family members' numbers. And when I got there, my family was obviously worried and stuff like that. So I told him, ended up calling him and telling him where I was. But out of my 4.5 years of being there, I only talked to my mom a handful of times. I only talked to other family members a handful of times. He really didn't like us talking to outside people. He thought it was just like those people don't understand us. They don't know who we are. They're going to put things in your ear. They're going to try to convince you to go back to your lower self. And we really could only talk to family members who were supplying us with money or some type of resource. That was the only time he even wanted us to reach out. Reach out to your people because we need money right now, but not just to communicate with them.
And in your time that you were there, did you see other members of the group leave the group during that time?
Yes.
And how would Mr. Bishop respond to the fact that folks were leaving?
People trying to leave the group was like, it was always just like this big, drawn-out thing. Hours and hours of sitting there going back and forth with the person about why they're doing something wrong, opening the Bible up and showing them these Bible verses that prove that they're going back to their lower self, putting something else before the kingdom of God, putting their family or their kids or anybody before the kingdom of heaven. So they're going to end up in hell. And at the end of their life cycle, when they die, they're going to have committed the biggest sin, which is to go against the Christ, to go against, the Most High. And at some points, it was like people were jumped. People were physically harmed for trying to leave, for just saying they wanted to leave. A lot of people left in the middle of the night because it wasn't really safe to tell somebody that you wanted to leave.
Your Honor, at this point, I think the limiting instruction that I provided would be appropriate.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I need to read you some more information. I remind you that sometimes evidence is admitted for a limited purpose or for some counts and not others. Such evidence may be considered by the jury for the sole issue or purpose and only for the counts for which the evidence is limited and not for any other purpose. In order to prove its case in count 1, rape, the state has offered evidence of other offenses of sexual assault allegedly committed by the accused. You are permitted to consider that evidence for its bearing on any matter to which you find it to be relevant. The defendant is on trial for the offenses charged in this bill of indictment only and not for any other acts, even though such acts may incidentally be criminal. Before you may consider any other alleged acts, you must first determine whether the accused committed the other alleged acts and whether such acts were in fact acts of sexual assault. If so, you must then determine whether the act shed any light on the elements of the crimes charged in the indictment in this trial. Such evidence is, at most, supporting evidence of some issues and may not by itself be the basis of conviction for the case on trial. By giving this instruction, the court in no way suggests to you that the defendant has or has not committed any other acts, nor whether such acts, if committed, prove anything. This is solely a matter for your determination. Go ahead.
During the time you're in the group, did anything happen that made you believe that the defendant had developed a sexual interest?
Yes.
I was just going to say, about how long after you got there did that happen?
I would say it was a few weeks, maybe a month, where I heard him say that when he found out I was a virgin, he had asked the universe for a virgin, and he implied that, like, he told me that he could open me up.
And was that in Belize at that point?
We were traveling, actually, like, through Mexico, so we were, like, in the car.
And did you share his interest in a sexual relationship?
No.
And did you express your feelings to the defendant about whether or not you wanted a sexual relationship with him?
No.
Did he ever act on his interest in you?
Yes.
When did that happen?
When we were in Belize, me and his wife, or the woman that he was with at the time, Velvet, we got close, we were friends, and he invited me into the tent with them both one night to watch a movie. And I was laying next to her, and he was laying next to her on the other side. And he, like, in the middle of the movie, sometime during the movie, he just told us, like, he wanted to break my virginity.
And how did you respond?
I don't remember saying anything. I just remember being scared. And he told her that he wanted her to be there and to hold my hand. being upset, saying she didn't want to do it, and him yelling and saying, "You're going to do it." And then he turned on the music, and he broke my virginity.
And were you all like in a city or in the forest, or like where were you?
We were kind of like in a small town in Belize, but we had a house, but we slept in tents.
Okay. And in that moment, like, what were you, like, in that moment, like, did you feel like you had options?
No, like he was my higher self. So it's like whatever he wanted from me, whatever he wanted me to do, just, I just did.
And how long had you been away from home by that point?
It has to at least be, it probably was almost 6 months.
And were there other instances of sexual contact between you and the defendant?
After that, yes.
And I guess, did you feel like, did you ever develop a romantic relationship with the defendant?
I wouldn't call it a romantic relationship.
How would you describe it?
It was like he wanted to have sex with me when he wanted to have sex with me. And he would just say, like, "I'm really attracted to you right now. I think I'm supposed to give you something," because he believed that his sperm or his, he believed that his sperm had higher knowledge in it. It was like if you were to swallow it or if you were to take it in, he believed that it would make you smarter, it would make you more enlightened. And so it was like he would say that the universe told him to have sex with certain people at certain times. Sometimes
This is the downloads we were talking about in the other video.
Say that he got this calling, that's what's supposed to happen, and that's what it was. It wasn't like we love each other, so we're gonna, No.
Was there a time in, I think it was Mexico, that stands out in your mind to the defendant?
Yeah. Yes.
What was going on that day?
So I was with someone else. I was with another guy called, should I say his name?
Sure.
Okay. Aaron. I was with Aaron at the time. And we were in a relationship together, and Eligio had called me up to his room, and another woman told me that he called, he told a woman to tell me. And I remember telling Aaron, I'm just going to go up there and see what he wants, but I don't want to do anything with him, so it's not going to happen. And I went up there, and he started just coming on to me and trying to kiss me and touch me. And I told him, I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. I'm with someone else. I don't want to do this with you. And he told me to shut up. And he took me to the bathroom and made me give him oral.
And was anyone else there at that point?
I believe Velvet came in later, but not at the time.
Not at the time?
Not at the time where he was making moves and doing those things.
Were there any other times in the group that Mr. Bishop forced himself on you?
I think that there was never a time where I felt like it was my choice to have sex with Mr. Bishop. I always felt like it was something that I had to do because he was my God, he was my Lord and Savior, and this is what the divine wanted, this is what God wanted at this point in time. And that ultimately maybe I would be more enlightened if I just did it.
I guess you were still part of the group when they left, right?
Yes.
What do you remember about the night before she left?
I remember, I think I remember quite a bit about what was going on at that time. I remember once we had company over, like someone that he knew. And,
was this a guy or a girl?
I think it was a guy and two girls or something like that. And the girls, where we were talking to the girls, all the women were talking to the girls, like in another room. And I remember, like we just had this thing where it was like outsiders, where we always had to look at them like they were of their lower self, like we couldn't get too close to them. And I remember just getting really friendly with the women that were visiting, and it was like all the other women were looking at her like, you're not supposed to be doing that. And so once they left and everything, it was like an issue that was brought up that she was being too friendly with those women.
So when you say it was an issue that was brought up, did y'all as the other women bring it up, or did Mr. Bishop bring it up?
I believe it was probably one of the women that brought it up, because I think that he wasn't in the room at that time to even know if that's what was going on.
Gotcha.
But I believe, one of the women brought it up, and he then wanted to address it with her and everybody in the room.
Okay. How did he go about addressing it?
So he had this room where he would like sit behind his big desk, and he told everybody to pull up, which is like everybody come, gather around basically. And he told her to get on her knees, which is just something like, it's like what we had to do to address him all the time. We couldn't be like standing. If he's sitting, we couldn't be standing. We had to be on our knees or on our face or whatever, like just lower than him. And so he told her to get on her knees, and he started addressing her about what happened. She started wanting to explain herself, and he was upset that she was like talking out of turn. Like, he didn't want her to talk at certain moments, like, you're not supposed to be talking, why are you talking? But she wanted to explain herself. And then I remember him telling her, like, if you keep talking out of turn, like, you're going to get smacked. Like, you're going to get it. And then he said that I'm going to have Silva slap you, which is another member at the time. And Silva walks behind and just kind of like stands behind her. And then I don't know what the conversation was between Eligio, but they were kind of like going back and forth, trying to get him like upset because she's not able to express her point. He's saying she's being disrespectful, and she's not moving like we move. She's out of our frequency. I guess she talks out of turn again. Zoka just smacks her like hard, like it was a hard smack. And I think like I just like be in shock by that. And then the rest of us just like gathered around, like if she does something, like we're prepared that if we were to try to do something, somebody else is gonna step in because she's just supposed to take that smack.
Guys, as you come onto the page, don't forget to hit the like bell and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so as yet. That's how brainwashed these ladies were, that they would get on their face when Eligio Bishop told them that they should be lower than him, or squat or kneel or whatever position he wanted them in to be lower than him. It was crazy. This is absolutely outrageous that people would actually subject themselves to that. And I know these are not dumb people. These are people who were seeking God. There's nothing wrong with seeking God, but you always got to be very leery of the ones who come in sheep's clothing, right? Devils come in sheep's clothing.
And was it just that one smack, or what happened next?
I believe after that, like, expressed like she doesn't want to be here anymore. She wants to leave. verbally abusive because, you know, excuse me, because, yeah, expressing that you want to leave is just like, no, but he was like, you know, he would say like, go pack your bags, like, get out of here. But everybody is like harassing her, like, you're about to go back to your lower self. You know, you giving up on your journey. You're giving up on yourself. You know, all these things. And we're following her around the house as she's gathering her things and trying to pack up her things. And people are putting a camera in her face, like, look at her. She's leaving. She's going to go back to just being a regular Babylonian. She's going to go. And we're just like harassing her.
And at this point, like, you're participating in that as well?
Yes. And I'm telling her, like, oh, you're weak. Like, you can't even stay here and just take it. Like, you're weak. You're going to go back to your lower self. And she starts trying to pack as much stuff as she can, but she decided, like, she's going to leave her clothes. Because we start saying, you're going to take everything back that you brought? Oh, look at you. That's the type of person that you are. You know, really just getting to her. And she gathers her suitcase up and takes it downstairs. And as she's putting on her shoes on the stairs, that's when Eligio starts talking to her. And he's like, see, what you're about to do is, you know what you're about to do. You're going to end up coming back anyway. You might as well stay because you're just going to go, what are you going to do? Go to your grandmother's house, and then you're going to be upset and realize that you made a mistake going back to hell, and like, you know, just going in on her while she's tying her shoes. You might as well not leave because you know you're going to be right back. She ends up going out the door. Her Uber's outside. She takes her suitcase out to the Uber, and as soon as she gets to the door of the Uber is when I remember someone telling her, like, he wants to talk to you. And then she leaves. I remember her leaving her suitcase outside and coming back in the door and going up the stairs where he was to his room. And then I remember him coming out of his room and taking her into the other third bedroom. Door closed. And then,
when you say taking her in there, like leading her, they just walked in?
Yeah, leading her. It was leading her.
And were you upstairs at all while they were up in that room?
No, I wasn't. Well, I was, but not when I saw them going into the room. I was downstairs.
Okay.
While they had been in there, yeah, but I was upstairs in the other room.
Okay. And did you, like, hear anything going on in that room, or arguing, a struggle, anything happening that night?
I didn't hear that, no.
Okay. During your time in the group, I think we know y'all on social media a lot. Like, when you were in Carbonation, was the group present on social media?
Oh, yes, every day.
Yeah. And did you participate in some or all of those videos?
Yes.
And did anything get posted, to your knowledge, did anything get posted on Mr. Bishop's accounts without him being behind it?
No. In fact, everyone's page had to almost be identical to his. And he would say, like, this is what we're posting today. So you guys are all going to post this. You know, and yeah, he was always in control of what was being posted.
And while you were in the group, and even after Mr. Bishop was arrested, did you say positive things online about Mr. Bishop and the group?
Yes.
And today, as you sit here, do you feel like your views in those videos or interviews accurately reflect what happened in the group?
No, I don't. I feel that I was trying to protect him and his image, and just our image as what I thought was just like, we're Carbonation. We're this, you know, this group of people who just are like-minded and we want to do something different. And so I was trying to protect that whole image, not really looking at the facts of the matter.
They're not seeing it for what it really was. It was brainwashing. Slowly, he brainwashed them without them even realizing it. And this is why when he was incarcerated, they were still defending the whole group's policy. Well, his policy really, Eligio Bishop.
If I could add just a second here.
Sure.
Leave carbonation. I think you already said, but just so we can add with that.
It was April of 2022.
That's all the questions I have at this point. Thank you.
Fine. Cross.
Thank you.
So now, Nature Boy's attorney is about to cross-examine the witness.
Yeah. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
All right. Robert Booker, we met before.
Yes.
All right. Just a couple questions for you. So, going back in December of 2017, that's when you first went into this group. Is that correct?
December 2017.
Okay. And I believe from your testimony before, you had mentioned that you were living in somewhere up in north of the United States, Michigan, or somewhere like that?
Seattle,
Washington. That's exactly right. And you had just graduated college.
Wait, I was in school.
You were in college.
Pursuing degree.
Okay. All right. And so you came across this group online. You were pursuing some sort of natural lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And so you came across it online. They fit what you were seeing. And so you ended up leaving school, getting on a plane, and going down to, I believe, Mexico, correct?
So no, I was interested in the lifestyle, but I left Seattle and they were in Texas.
In Texas. Okay. So from that time that you left until April 2022, you were with the group the majority of the time, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so you did go home at some point, but for the most part, you were with the group.
Yes, for the most part, I was with the group.
Okay. How many times do you think you went home over that time frame?
I went home one time.
Was that when you went with Vel?
Yes.
And with the child that she had?
Yes.
Okay. Was that in 2020 or 21?
That was in 2020, I believe.
Okay. And Velvet at that time was married to Eligio Bishop. Is that correct? Or was his main girlfriend or whatever?
She wasn't legally married to him yet.
Okay.
Later on that year, she was.
Okay. And the child that she had with her was the child that they had together?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, you indicated, I think, on your direct examination that relationships were sometimes together, sometimes they were not, but it wasn't unusual for males and females to have a relationship unless Mr. Bishop wanted to have a relationship with that female?
Can you repeat your question?
Yeah, so would it be possible for a female to be with another male outside of Mr. Bishop as long as Mr. Bishop didn't want to be with that female?
Yeah, it was if they got his permission to be with that female, then yes.
All right, and when they were with that female, were they with that person on a full-time basis where they would sleep in the same tent or room with them? Or did they sleep separately?
That's what Eligio wanted.
Okay.
A lot of times we would sleep as a community.
Okay.
Yeah, so
everybody
all
just
sleep in the same room. Yes.
Everybody on the floor in the same room?
Yes.
Okay. And that was when you guys were in Texas and various other places, kind of the same rules?
Yes, it was the same.
Okay. And the life that you guys were living at that time, it was for the world basically to see. People were in the lifestyle that was being lived, right?
What we were doing, a lot of people saw it online, yes.
Okay. It was recorded and produced almost like every day, right?
A lot of it, yes.
Okay. And was it content that was produced that you said stuff in, Mr. Bishop said stuff in, kind of everybody did, right?
Yeah, I would say majority of the group were involved in the videos, like were present in the videos.
Okay. But Mr. Bishop, the underlying meaning behind the videos, Mr. Bishop was the person who pushed that forward. Is that fair to say? Okay. And what kind of video was going to be made? Did he come up with how it was going to be made or things like that?
He would come up with who's going live today, like who's getting on video today, what they're going to talk about. He would stand behind the camera, and if we said anything that he didn't like, he would gesture to us, or he would gesture to us what we should say or what would sound good and how we should say all that.
Was it scripted?
Not verbatim, like scripted, but we had a jargon, like we had a language that we spoke in.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of times things were repeated so much we had the answer for anything because we were saying the same response to
Okay.
that. Yeah.
All right. Was everything that you guys were saying, was it true?
What do you mean? Was it true?
Was the image that you were portraying to the world, was it a true image? Or were you guys portraying some fiction?
Now, this is Eligio Bishop's attorney, and the questions he's asking are very leading. And you would think that he would ask different questions because this particular question, she's going to say exactly what went on, that it was fake, like the others said before on the witness stand. She's going to say some of the things were fake and some of them weren't, but my point is that's not the question that he should be asking if that's his client. He's not protecting his client.
We were not portraying what was truly going on, like all the time. Some of the things that were recorded were truth. Some of the things weren't. Like how we would say, "Oh, we're out here growing our own food, having this community lifestyle where everybody's happy and everybody's glowing and prospering." That wasn't the truth. Behind the cameras, there was a lot of things going on that weren't fitting that image.
Okay.
And then things like where we would put out, where he would put out these things where he would say, "I'm God, and these are my servants. These are the people that I'm out here humiliating, doing these things." Yes, okay, that was actually the truth, what was going on.
Okay.
But it depends on the video.
Okay. All right. Did the videos differ over time like you just mentioned, where he would have a video to say he was God or whatever he said? Was that something that he did for the entire time that you were around him?
It's interesting because when I first found him online, he wasn't saying that I'm God and everybody's living in my mind. This is my world. He wasn't saying that. He was saying that each person was God's creation. Each being is God's creation, and we are all here to honor God's creation. So he would say, like, "You're God, I'm God, the bees, the trees are God, the animals are God, all those things are pieces of God." But towards the end of my being there, it was like he's God and everybody else is living in his imagination.
Okay. And that was more toward 2021, 2022 timeframe?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, you indicated that, I'm going to jump forward to March 24th, 2022. You guys were living in a house here in Atlanta at that time, correct?
2020.
22?
2022, yes.
Yeah, that's what we're here for, March 24th, 2022. So, and you were staying at the house at that time as well?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was.
Okay. And was living there as well?
I was living there as well.
Okay. And do you know if she was in a relationship with anybody at that time?
At the time of her staying at the house in Harbor Chase,
yes.
She was with one other guy in the group at that time, like within that time frame of us being in that house.
Was his name Solar?
Yes.
Okay. And so, was Solar with someone else also?
He had a relationship with Zoka at one point.
Okay, so he had a relationship with Zoka and with...
Yeah, different times. Sometimes, one time it was at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that things when they would have something like the one time at the same time? Was that something that was known throughout the house? Was that like just
polygamy or having multiple wives?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Was the sexual act just done in public also?
The sexual act done in public also. What do you mean?
Well, you just said that he was with both. Did you mean that Solar was with Zoka and Janae at the same time, as in he was dating both of them at the same time, or he was having a sexual act with both of them at the same time?
Oh, well, I don't know what they did sexually, but they were in a relationship at the same time.
So he would have a polygamous relationship where he would be with Zoka and at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And so when people were in a relationship like that, would they live within the house in the same area? So Zoka and Solar and they were together, would they all sleep together? on the first floor, second floor, somewhere in the house?
Yes, yes. Everybody, no one really had their own space, so it was always just like but as far as like their little corner that they had at one point to sleep in with them three, they would sleep together.
Okay. Now, when Mr. Bishop would talk on the videos, did he use a more normal tone of voice, or was it a very slow and deliberate and dramatic tone of voice when he would be on the videos?
He would change. I don't think it was all the time the same thing. Sometimes he would get on video and he would have this sweet personality of this charming guy that you can relate to and you can understand. Sometimes he would get on camera and he would be the teacher or the professor or the therapist, or sometimes he would get on there and he would just be yelling and angry and cursing and things like that. And that's how he was. Okay.
All right. And so there would be a wide variety of Eligio Bishop on video. Okay. Now, March 24th, 2022, you watched, I think you said Zoka hit in the face, slap her, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And this was during a time that you guys were sitting around Mr. Bishop's desk and he was pontificating about something. Yes. Is that fair to say? He was upset with...
Yes.
Okay. And upset with him?
No, she was more just like upset, like not getting her point across, and like trying to tell her side of the story, but not at him.
Okay. And so ultimately, she gets her bags. She's about to pack and get out there.
Yes.
Right. The bags were outside in the shed. She gets her bags and she's getting ready to leave.
Okay. Yes.
Is that right? You witnessed that?
Ready to leave. Yes.
Okay.
She was getting ready to leave.
Okay. And so that would have been obvious to everybody since she has bags that she's leaving, right?
Yes.
And so you guys are you and the other women are following her around with your phones and your cameras, and you're kind of agitating her, provoking her, right?
And women, yes, everyone was.
Okay. Telling her that, if you leave us, that you're going back to the regular world, basically, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so, but she says, I'm leaving anyway, right?
Yeah, she wasn't really saying anything, but she was just kind of keeping her head down and trying to get out of there. But yes.
All right. And so she is able to call an Uber and get all that set up, and the Uber is outside. She's headed out to leave, right?
Yes, she was able to get an Uber through all that. Yeah.
Okay. While all this was going on and she's packing the bags and waiting on Uber, was anybody hitting her or hurting her during that time frame that you saw?
Not hitting her, but yes, being verbally hurtful, yes.
People were saying mean things to her.
A lot of mean things.
Okay. But she was being bold and strong. She's leaving anyway.
She wasn't being bold and strong, but she was leaving, yes.
Okay. She seemed fearful.
I think she was very in fear.
Okay.
Very much in fear.
Okay. And so she's fearful. She's hearing people say some mean things. Did you hear Mr. Bishop say mean things to her?
Yes.
Okay. So everybody was.
Yes.
They were kind of discouraging her from leaving, right?
Yes.
This was, we want you to stay, but we're not going to say nice things to make you stay. We're going to say mean things to make you stay, because...
Yes, because we want you to know that leaving is going to be a mistake.
Right.
Yes.
And so it was to discourage her from leaving.
Yes.
Okay. Were there any physical threats made to her, though? Like, we'll bleep you up or kick you?
Yes. Yeah, like, if you leave and come back, once you come back, you know what's going to happen.
Okay.
If you try to come back, you're going to get beat up.
So there really wasn't a reason if you left, if you were fortunate enough to leave, if you came back, because you get beat up if you came back, right?
Can you repeat your question?
Yes, ma'am. There wasn't, if you left and came back, there was a threat if you came back, so it really wasn't a reason to come back, right?
There was a reason to come back.
There was a reason to come back.
Absolutely.
Okay.
A lot of people left and came back, and the reason to come back is that you would think that the only way to really save your soul is to be in this man's life, is to confess that he's your Lord and Savior and your Messiah.
Okay.
Because at the end of your life, if you made the wrong decision to be out here in the world amongst people who don't know that, who don't realize that, you would end up being condemned to hell.
So you being in hell or Babylon, as it's been described, if you were not involved in his life.
Yes.
Okay. So people would come back and they would risk coming back in physical harm just because of that draw.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so people would leave and come back during that time frame. Alive.
People would leave. People left and came back alive.
Okay. Men and women.
I'm sorry.
Men and women.
Yes, men and women.
Okay. All right. So she's leaving. She's packed up. Has she ever left before that you've seen that time frame?
Not during this time frame, but before, yeah.
Okay. So since you had been around her, she had left and come back.
Yes, I believe one other time.
Okay. All right. So she's leaving. But she makes it outside after all that she's gone through. She makes it outside to the Uber, but then she turns around and comes back inside.
Yes.
Okay. And so she goes up to the second floor of the house where Mr. Bishop is waiting up there?
Yes.
Okay. Does he take her in his room or into another room?
To another room.
Okay. Is it the room for the girls or whose room is that?
Yeah, it's a room for the girls. It was originally he made it up to be his kids' room, so it was bunk beds in there.
Okay.
But, yeah,
Were there kids there?
Yes, my son was there.
Okay. How old was your son then?
My son at the time, he was almost 3 years old, so he was 2.
So that was part 1. I'm going to be airing the part 2 to this video where this woman is testifying. I believe it is True's wife, if I'm not mistaken. The voice kind of sounds like her. But if you guys know definitely who she is, drop it in the comment section. I'm over and out. Don't forget to hit the like bell as you leave the page and subscribe if you haven't done so as yet. Thank you for watching.